Welcome to the Rent to Rent Success podcast, all about creating consistent cash flow, escaping the 9-to-5, and really living life on your terms. This is the only podcast entirely dedicated to helping you achieve rent to rent success. It's our place to inspire each other to believe bigger, to be bolder, and to be game changers for good. I'm Stephanie Taylor, your guide on this exciting ride. Let's start up the engines and get ready to fly. Hello. Stephanie here, and welcome to the 13th episode of the Rent to Rent Success podcast. Unlucky for some, but lucky for you, because today we're diving into what to do if your tenants can't pay the rent. It's something that a lot of people worry about, Corona times and non-Corona times. So I know that you're going to find this one really useful. I have been amazed to find that we've got listeners all around the world too. On every continent, we've got listeners in Canada, in Ghana, in Mexico, in Austria, in Hong Kong, in Hungary, in Australia, and lots more. I'll soon need to be saying hello, Maache, hola, and guten tag. But wherever you're listening from today, it is great to have you here with us. And if you've been enjoying the podcast and you haven't left a review yet, why not? Please leave a review and a few words on Apple Podcasts. This really makes a huge difference, and we love hearing from you. So today we're talking rent, and like many landlords, you might be concerned about how to manage your finances while we're in the lockdown due to Corona. Many businesses have closed, many people have been laid off, and many of your tenants may not be able to pay their rent. The government ban on evictions has been extended up until 31st of December, which means that for the moment, your hands are tied. Tenants have been made aware that they needn't pay the rent for the next few months, and also that landlords have a, inverted commas, mortgage holiday, and that's a total fantasy land, which I'll come back to later. But as a rent-to-renter, you have your rent to pay. Perhaps income from your business or job has also stopped, and now this on top of it. You want to try to support people who genuinely are in need while weeding out anybody who is trying to pull a fast one and take a 6-month rent holiday. So what should you do if a tenant says that they can't pay? Well, our 3-step system means that you can be supportive and you can dodge those who are trying to play the system, and you can keep your sanity, which is always a plus. So step 1. Communication. It's the heart of everything, really. We talked about it we talked about it when talking about what to do when talking to landlords as well. And it's obviously really important here when talking to tenants. So I know that some rent-to-rent companies have been keeping their head in the sand and just not getting in touch with the tenants in case tenants use that communication as an excuse not to pay. We took the view that it's important for us as the rent-to-renter to act first, and because the news is telling the tenants every day that they don't need to pay their rent. So rather than adopting a wait and see mentality, we wanted to set out our process for tenants. And we chose to do that over email rather than phone. Here's why. When you send an email, there's an audit trail, and nobody can say that you said something that you didn't say. It means that tenants have time to think too. On the phone, they may say the first thing that comes to mind, and an email gives them time to think about it and plan. And we've set out a process which will encourage the genuine people and deter people who are trying to play the system, because it requires some evidence. So this is what we said to tenants in our email. We said, we hope that you're well in this uncertain time, that we won't make you homeless or charge any late rent fees during this period. legally we're not allowed to evict anyone anyway, but we wouldn't do that. So this email says that. We say pay your rent as normal if you can. Let us know if you anticipate any difficulties in paying your rent. Claim the money that you're entitled to, and we explain briefly what furlough is and universal credit and give them the links to the further information. And we also flag up that rent is a priority payment, and we explain that the rent is still due, and if the rent's not paid now, then it will need to be paid at a later date and a plan agreed so that the rent can be caught up on. And we also explain that the as seen on TV mortgage holidays are actually a pay more later scheme, which is not available to all landlords. So we just explained that not all landlords can get it. And in fact, it's not a holiday, and all landlords will still have to pay any missed mortgage payments later on. And we ended by saying that we're here to help, so they can get in touch with us. Hey there. Are you curious about making money from properties you don't own? Watch your free Rent to Rent Success Masterclass and get the full lowdown on Rent to Rent with me. Get started at renttoRentSuccess.com/guide. That's rentsuccess.com/guide. You'll learn more about Rent to Rent and how it can change your life. Okay, now let's get back to the show. So that went across really well. So that was step one. You've sent the email with the information. So step two now is the secret sauce. This is the bit where people wanting to game the system are stopped in their tracks. Genuine people will move forward and the opportunists won't. When tenants contact us to say that they'll have difficulty paying their rent, we thank them for getting in touch and ask them to complete a short online form that we've called a rent repayment. Oh, it's a bit of a mouthful, this. A rent payment plan request form. And that form tells us the tenant's financial situation and circumstances and their proposal for their rent payment plan. And it also tells us their universal credit application reference, if applicable. So a payment plan can be whatever you agree with your tenants and may include the tenant making part payments for the rent for a period followed by extra payments later to make up the shortfall. Instead of just not paying any rent at all. This process takes all the uncertainty out of it and gives both you and the tenant more clarity. So step 3 is the plan. As I mentioned, in the rent payment plan request form, the tenants will make a suggested payment plan and we'll review the forms and agree to the plan. Either agree to the plan or we'll discuss it further. And at the end of the process, we have a solution which both us and the tenants are happy with. So the summary of it is you don't just have to kiss goodbye to your rent. We're lucky that the government have supported people. So actually, if the tenants are in a bad situation, the government through furlough or universal credit is providing support for them. So with this simple 3-step plan, you can help in genuine cases where needed and also collect your rent as normal from most of your tenants. So to summarize the steps, it's step 1, communicate your process to your tenants in writing. Step 2 is the information request. So that's where you got the information from your tenants in the rent payment plan request form, which is needs renaming, that one, doesn't it? It's a bit of a tongue twister. And step 3 is the plan where you agree a payment plan together if needed. So that plan has worked well for us, with the vast majority of our tenants paying their rent as normal and less than a handful actually on a payment plan. So in reality, non-payment of rent due to coronavirus hasn't been an issue for most of us because of all that financial support from the government. In fact, coronavirus has been better for that, because if people had lost their jobs before, they may not be able to have claimed universal credit. But now the eligibility requirements for universal credit have changed, and also the amount of universal credit has gone up. So it actually puts us in a slightly better position. So this 3-step plan will support you through coronavirus, and it can be used in other situations where people are come to you and request to pay a lower rent. And things will change as the government starts to withdraw financial support and make changes to the furlough scheme as we ease out of lockdown. But as I've said, universal credit then steps in, which can help people either until they find another job or until they decide to move on. Some of our tenants are young professionals, or the most of them are young professionals. So for some of them, they'll be looking to move back to the family home if they did lose their job. So the next week, I'll be talking about the other big question I get asked, which is, what if you as a renter can't pay your rent to the landlord? So if you want to find out more about how real people are coping with all these corona issues, then do join us for our live Rent to Rent Real Talks every Wednesday, 8 p.m. in the Rent to Rent Success Secrets Facebook group. I will put the links in the show notes for you. Until next week, have an amazing one. And remember, believe bigger, be bolder, be a game changer.
Thank you so much for listening. If you like the links for anything mentioned in today's episode, or if voice is not enough and you want to see us on video too, you can find all the show notes and lots more at renttorentsuccess.com. That's rent number 2, rentsuccess.com. If you've enjoyed today's episode, we'd super appreciate it if you would take a few minutes to review it in your podcast app. Remember, we'll be donating to our B1G1 charities too for each review you give. Until then, believe bigger, be bolder, be a game changer.